First of all, the San Diego State University Department of Asia Pacific Studies and Television Film and Media have the real distinct pleasure to interview world famous director Justin Lin. Justin, thank you for allowing us to interview you.
Oh, thanks for having me.
In Better Luck Tomorrow, Tokyo Drift, and now the Finishing the Game, you play around with some familiar Asian stereotypes.
Yeah.
Derek ended up writing an article about me. He even won some kind of journalism award for it. It was some bullshit article about affirmative action in school sports to rile everyone up.
Can't you go find a nice Japanese girl like the rest of the white guys around here?
Oh, you've joined the Nazi party.
What are your general thoughts on stereotyping, and what were you trying to accomplish in all three movies, or each one in particular? Like, is this parody? Is this advocacy? Is it a combination of both? Where were you trying to take us with this?
I personally feel like at the end of the day, advocacy and it's about empowerment.
Okay.
You know, I think as an Asian American filmmaker, I don't think that we should put any restrictions on any other Asian American artist. I think that there's Asian American artists out there that choose not to depict Asian Americans, and all they want to do is make Hollywood movies, or they want to do. I think as artists, we should be empowered to do whatever we want. Right. So I think it's a very personal choice to begin with, But I think for me, again, it was very simple. I think that when Better Luck Tomorrow, when I was making that film, it got to a point where I didn't know anybody. I had no relationships with anyone in the industry, and I had no track record. Right. So very quickly, I had to decide, okay, what am I going to do? So I took 10 credit cards out and went into six-figure debt. But when you do that, it becomes very clear. Because for me, it became very clear. Okay, I can pretty much only do this once in my life.
Okay.
So if that's it, what would that film be? Because I had many ideas, but it was very clear to me that at the end of the day, I wanted to explore issues that were very close to my heart, and at the same time, I want to see representation of Asian Americans where they don't have to explain why they need to exist. So that was just something that was very personal to me. But since then, after that film, where I had no opportunity, things kind of blew up, and I had a lot of different opportunities. So I decided, hey, I really want to try to gain perspective of what it means to be a filmmaker. Right. Because I went to film school, I've worked in nonprofit, I've done documentaries, I worked in the independent world, and then now I've done studio films and then a summer studio film. So I've actually gone into rooms that a lot of times I've only heard about, right? So, doing like a film like Tokyo Drift, that was a lot of the fight, a lot of the discourse was actually happening with studio execs of multi-billion-dollar corporations, And for me, it was always very interesting, like the first thing I went in there, I said, look, I want the lead to be Asian American. And what is the first thing they say? What would that white kid in middle America, would he be able to relate? And I always think that's so silly, because I grew up, I'm an Asian American kid, I can relate to the white guy on screen. Why can't it go both ways? And I know it goes both ways. So you realize how dated that machine still is, But also you realize it is a big business, and it's not their business to take risks, right? So these fights that you go into, so ultimately with that film, it became about, okay, let's go and let's just make this a colorblind casting, which is still very rare. And then when we actually did find the lead, who actually Lucas Blass was best for the role, at the same time I was able to kind of develop a three-dimensional, Asian American lead that Sung Kang ended up playing. Right. And it was great to see that, when they test these movies, he was their favorite character. He was the audience's favorite character, and he's still one of the highest tested characters in Universal history. So you realize that it's very interesting, because filmmaking at the end of the day, it's still 2 hours of film being projected. But you're talking about two different machines now at work. And, after going through Tokyo Drift, I realized it's great. I'm very, in a way, I'm very privileged to have the opportunity to work and jump around, do whatever I choose. So if that was the case, I really wanted to go back and again, like work with very talented Asian American actors, and because at the end of the day, to me, it's not a question of talent. I know we have the talent. It's a question of opportunity. And we can either sit there and complain about the lack of opportunity, or we'll go and just make opportunities for ourselves, And that's, again, it goes back to the choices, and it's a very personal choice.
Which brings us to another question then. Hong Kong stars like Jackie Chan, Jet Li, they found a real success in American markets.
Yeah.
And we were talking about, just now, you were talking about money and commercial issues. In one of your panel discussions at the 25th San Francisco International Asian American Film Festival, you were asked to comment on several issues and questions. Now, what would you say separates Asian American cinema from other minority cinemas, namely African American and Latino, that have established like a vibrant commercial sector? Is like, are we going in that direction? Is that where we want to go? Or?
You know, we're at a crossroads right now. I think Asian American cinema is very much third world cinema.
Okay.
You know, African American cinema, you know, they have the audience. They have, you know, not only the African Americans they're the biggest movie going audience in the nation, it also crosses over, so they're able to nurture and grow their own stars. Latinos are on the rise, the numbers are there, and they love to see themselves in their support. So there's a marketplace. You know, Asian Americans, we do have the numbers, but we don't show up. So, I mean, I sit in these marketing meetings, and they, you know, we sit there and talk. I talk to the marketing people, and they say, well, we know you guys per capita, you know, spend the most money, but we don't have to cater to you. So we do whatever we want, and you still spend your money. So you realize a lot of times it's about, you know, there's power in numbers, you know, and also at the same time, I feel like people get confused. They think that, oh, well, what do you complain? Jackie Chan, Jet Li.
Poor birds. I feel sorry for all of you in the afterlife. Ninjas!
Those are Asian stars, you know. I mean, and also you take out the martial arts, you think Jackie Chan's gonna be able to get a role in a Hollywood film, you know?
Yeah, so I guess one of my follow-up questions would be like, so do you want to target mainstream audience with Asian content and Asian actors, or are you also looking at an Asian American target audience, like a market?
You know, it's a very complex question because I think ultimately we can talk strategy and everything, but as a filmmaker, it's so hard to make a film, period. You know, so I think you have to service the idea. Whatever idea that inspires you to move forward, you have to service that, you know? And you have choices along the way because, you know, if this idea is marketable and the studio really wants to make it, then it's a choice. Do you make it with them? Because when you sign that contract, you're in bed with that machine.
We are in the business of making money. It's very simple. We own some footage of someone who's very famous, but he's dead. We need to find someone who looks like him so we can walk around for an hour or so or whatever, so we can package the picture and sell it as a whole movie. What's so hard about that?
Well, are you gonna conduct another search to find the replacement for Bruce Lee?
Search? What search you talking about? I could go down to fucking Chinatown and find someone who looks just like him. 5 minutes.
Yeah, but do you think that would be the right person for the part?
Faster than you could say Egg Foo Young.
Egg Foo Young.
I found it.
Or do you want to do it independently? There's no right or wrong in any of these, but these are, again, very personal choices. You know, and at the same time, as a filmmaker, you want to make films, regardless of the backgrounds of the characters, that you can reach out and be able to connect with other people of all backgrounds, you know? But unfortunately, the reality is that when you're talking about the market shares and stuff, people actually, you know, when they talk about shares and demos and stuff, they still break people up in ethnic backgrounds. So that's the reality that we live in. And however we want to break that, you know, we have to at least know the game, the rules of the games first.
If you'll permit the comparison, much like Wong Kar-wai, you like to use and reuse the same actors and actresses, like Leonardo Nam, Sung Kang, Roger Fan, and Dustin Nguyen. What is it? Why do you like to use these particular actors? And is there a reason why you use these actors specifically?
Well, there's multiple reasons. I think at the end of the day, it's because they're very talented, you know? And I think that, you know, the reality again is when you look out there, and I've now gone into audition rooms and I've auditioned people, very big names even, of all backgrounds. And again, it's not a question of talent, it's opportunity. So when I sit there and I decide, okay, if I'm gonna do this independent film and I have all these ideas, which one am I gonna pick? And usually it's gonna be the one I feel like, wow, I wanna work with great people who are talented, you know? And there's something also about growing, you know, like as a filmmaker right now, I feel like I'm just starting off. Like it's been 5 years. It took me a couple of years to actually even understand what it means to be a filmmaker and actually get paid for it, you know? And at the same time, I think it's very important to me to grow with people, not only just cast, but also crew, you know, because you actually get to a point where, you know, you have shortcuts in communication. And I think that kind of intimacy and that relationship, you know, I'm always excited to kind of push, like with Sung Kang, he always gets casted for the brooding, cool guy, you know? But I know Sung, I know he's more the goofy kind of, you know, bumpkin. So we actually, when we did Finishing the Game, we actually tailored that for him.
Michael is a nice guy.
It made you soft. It made you lose your edge.
Edge?
Yeah, you asked him to autograph your shirt.
Well, what else was he supposed to sign?
It actually was able to showcase him, and now he, in his body of work, you know, he's able to stretch a little bit. And I think that's exciting, you know?
Just a familiarity thing. It's what about their draw as actors?
Well, I think that, you know, there's qualities in actors that a lot of times, you know, and everybody could say, let's go, I want to try to act. But, you know, the reality is that certain people somehow, with all the elements that are put together, you know, connect, you know? And I think, you know, these are the actors that I really enjoy. But at the same time, you know, every film I make, there's tons of roles. And like with Finishing the Game, you know, there were, you know, Meredith and Monique, you know, like these are, I've never worked with them before, and they came in, and now they're part of the family. So I feel like it's not just about reusing actors. Right. It's about meeting great people. And I could tell you 5 years ago, I knew like 5 great actors. Today, I know, like, I personally know like 30 great actors I've worked with before, you know, so I hope to keep growing.
Wonderful. Now, I'm gonna be a little bit more specific. This is gonna start looking a little random, but
okay.
It had to do with Tokyo Drift.
Yeah.
One of my students asked me, I know nothing about drifting or the drift world, but this is an interesting question he asked. How come there wasn't much emphasis on the traditional vehicles that are abundant in the drift scene in Japan? The Toyota Trueno, I believe it is, Levin, Nissan 180 SX, and the Silvia and the Mazda RX-7. He argues that these cars were the original standard for a drift car, and yet only one Silvia was shown in the movie, and it gets wrecked. So, you know, how was it? I mean, did you have to do research for this, and then how did you switch that around? And
you know, at the end of the day, there's a lot of politics when you're making a studio film, and that's the reality. But you know, I had pressures from other car companies, and I've had to walk away with lucrative deals where they're saying, "Hey, if you put a car in there," and I said, "Look, it doesn't actually fit the movie." And you know, I understand. You know, I love basketball. And so I hate it when I watch films with basketball and I see that the actors can't play or the director doesn't really understand the sport. Right. And it's always about this dunk or whatever, you know. So I don't know cars that well, but I wanted to respect it. So we actually did go and hang out a lot with, you know, the people in the drift culture. And yeah, I think that the Silvia is one of the classics. You know, we tried very hard, but I think at the end of the day, when we were building the cars, I really wanted to match the characters. Right. You know, so the Nissans actually were really difficult. But you know, the thing about I learned about drift, it's a very working class sport. Okay. It actually started in the backwoods, and it was like these kids, and you know, I met with the Drift King, and getting his approval was a big deal. And the thing that I love about drifting is the fact that they were just goofing around, and they're like, hey, there's all these curved roads, let's figure it out. And it became about, you know, they were using crappy cars, you know, to drift. And so it's not really about like, hey, why didn't you use this car or that car? It's really about these characters taking any kind of vehicle and personalizing it. And so as we were designing it, we were actually more looking at, okay, what would this character buy? And what car would this character drive?
So did Keiichi Tsuchiya, did he have much input into the production? And
Yeah, I mean, he actually developed this anime series called Initial D, and when they made the feature, he wouldn't even be a part of it. So the fact that he came over and he's even in the movie.
So was he happy with the?
Yeah, or else he wouldn't even.
Yeah.
Look, getting the respect of someone whose livelihood, is in that world. That means a lot to me.
Right.
And again, I think that people can pick this or that, but at the end of the day, I felt like the Sylvia got wrecked, but look who owned the Sylvia. It was Han. He's like the character everyone loves,
Right.
But it was driven by Sean, the lead character. So I think that it's valid and everyone can have their opinion. But I know when we were building it, there were certain politics. But all I wanted to do was try to be, serve what was real.
Yeah, no, I think the spirit behind the question had less to do with justifying why certain cars were in it, but what your feelings were and why you made these adjustments.
Yeah, and I think that's ultimately it was because of, when we looked at DK and his crew, we felt like the Nissan 350 would really
Would fit the
serve them.
personality.
Yeah. And then Han, we felt like he would have like the Sylvia and stuff like that. And the RX-7 was, with the Veilside kit, I just felt like that would be the car he would drive around, So, and then the Evo actually was one that like, at first I was kind of like, but then I realized to convert that, because that's a front wheel drive, to make it real, like all these things, it felt like it fit really well because Sean wouldn't be driving. So it actually came out of more character than like trying to say, hey, let's put all the cool cars in there.
Right.
So.
No, I'm sure they like that. Thank you. I want to move away now to something more technical, film oriented. Does it matter to you whether you shoot in 35 millimeter or in high definition?
It does. I mean, I think that a lot of times, especially coming from film school, I totally understand his question because, sometimes you're like, oh, I have no money, so let's go shoot DV. But I think as a filmmaker, these are big choices.
Right.
And I don't actually agree with people who are like trying to shoot DV or high def to make it look like film. I think that's wrong. I think that you need to respect the aesthetic of each format. Right. I think that high def is great, and like you see Michael Mann use it, at night exterior, and it picks up all these little things, and there's its own aesthetic. Right. So I think for every film before I shoot, I sit there and I just but like tomorrow at one point, I was thinking of shooting a DV, so actually I had a different visual like style for that film, and when I was able to shoot on 35, I had to redesign the whole movie. So I do think it's important. You have to really respect the aesthetic of each format, and as you really think about what the essence of what you're trying to communicate, the projects that you're doing, that's one of the fun things, is to say. And again, there's no right and there's wrong. As a filmmaker, these are choices you make along the way, and so don't ever take it for granted. Just don't do it for money reasons. I don't think that's right, because at the end of the day, you shoot on DV or high def, the transfer rate on the back end is going to be costly anyway. So. And also every format has its own nature. Like you shoot high def, your rhythm on set is totally different because you're going to be sitting, people are going to be in the tent, making sure everything's right. Whereas film, you can actually boom, boom, you can move. So these are all things that you have to take under consideration.
Another thing about the production portion, do you prefer using production dialogue or ADR?
Oh, I try to keep as much not ADR, production sound as possible. I don't like ADR at all, but sometimes it's a necessity. It's a whole other art getting the actor back in and trying to get them into that mood. And sometimes, you can actually adjust things a little bit, but nothing beats them being on set interacting with the other actor. Right. I think because when that moment comes and you're able to can it, that's what's the brilliance of film versus theater, where every night it's its own narrative, its own life, But here in film, you get it, you have it forever, and so sometimes it's really painful. And I tried very hard. That's why one of the secrets to filmmaking get a great production sound mixer. Great, that's gonna save you. That's gonna save you. You know, because when they're great, they really help you. Yeah.
Do you get these guys from film school?
You know, it depends. You know, I think that I was very fortunate when we did Better Luck Tomorrow. Curtis Choi, who's a great sound mixer, actually found us. You know, and I think a lot of times when you're making independent films, you have no money. You know, you end up using your friends or whatever, and sometimes you do what you have to do. But God, if you can actually go out, and I think that's what's so great, and that's the big lesson I learned. When you have no money, and you're doing everything independently, you do have the script. That's your currency. You know, you don't have money. Money's not the currency. Your passion. So Curtis Choi, she's a great sound mixer, but if you didn't like the script and you didn't believe in it, he wouldn't have done it. You know. So I think that's also a great way for you as a filmmaker. You know, when you go and you meet people, if you're proud of your project and they love it, that's a great relationship. You know, in film, I do $100 million movies. My job is to motivate people because sometimes they're not on set because they love the movie. They're on set because they're getting paid. You know.
I'm gonna get a little bit more formal here. Just one last question. And for the benefit of the audience, auteur theory holds that a director's film reflects the director's creative vision, as if he or she were the primary author of the work. In the future, after all is said and done, how would you like to be remembered? Your legacy, if you will. How would you like your work to be remembered? And finally, how would you like your actors to be remembered? So it's a three-pronged question.
Wow. Okay, you might have to help me out. When we go one prong at a time.
Well, okay, we'll do with the first one. How would you like to be remembered as a filmmaker?
You know, at the end of the day, I really would just be, you know, the fact that if I have a body of work,
Right.
that'd be fine, because I can't control how people judge me.
Right.
You know, and I can only, like, part of my journey. You know, for people it's 2 hours.
Right.
Sometimes it's like 10 years of my life. You know, so and I'm not there to. I don't want to. You know, I can't be there to explain everything. So I think with filmmaking, a lot of times is you put as much as you can into it, and when it goes out into the world, it's going to be perceived how it's going to be perceived. You know, and so for me, you know, the fact that today I have more choices than I had 5 years ago, and the fact that today I'm a better filmmaker than I was 5 years ago, that's enough for me. You know, and I think, you know, however people want to react to that, I have no control, and I actually, you know, I don't really, you know, I don't really think too much about that, because I think that film is a real relationship with viewers. You know, you're not, you know, if you have a film, every film, I've gone to these little festivals and huge festivals, and you're always going to have films, some people are going to like it, some people aren't.
Why would you, with the talent up there and yourself, make a film that's so empty and immoral for Asian Americans?
What I find very offensive and condescending about your statement is nobody would say to a bunch of white filmmakers, how could you do this to your people? This film has the right to be about these people, and Asian American characters have the right to be whoever the hell they want to be. They do not have to represent their people.
So it's not really even about liking or not liking.
Right.
You know, it's really about respecting the craftsmanship, you know, of it. And I think that's why it goes to the second, you know, I would love for people to remember the actors as, you know, as people that connect with them. Because at the end of the day, I think film is about communication, you know? And, you know, I'll see films, you know, sometimes I'll see a broad, goofy comedy, but yet it made me laugh. I was able to share laughs with strangers in a dark place. And that's very intimate, and that's great. And these moments I will always remember. So it's, you know, at the same time, you know, I just saw Ang Lee's new movie. Brilliant.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I loved it because he's a master filmmaker, and I love the fact that, you know, Ang Lee is not a filmmaker. He's very rare today, because most times you watch films, everything's trying to move you forward. But with Ang Lee,
He's slowing you down.
he's setting up the world. He's setting, and you just go, and you kind of have to go. You have to just let go, and that's actually a real, like, that's very rare.
And about the work, how would you like that to be remembered?
You know, I hope that, you know, for whatever people feel about the works, they see that at least there was a point of view. You know, because I think that at the end of the day, you know, even Tokyo Drift, a lot of times people are like, it's a big popcorn movie. Yeah, it's a big popcorn movie. Hopefully you enjoy your popcorn and you enjoy the car chases. But at the same time, I think there's a point of view to that movie, you know. So I think that's all you can, you know, whether it's something that's passionate and you go, you know, you'll drop everything to make that happen, or if it's a bigger budget where it's, you know, the intent is different. I think as a filmmaker, what you bring to it is a point of view, you know, and you live or die by your point of view. You know, if you have no point of view, you shouldn't be making movies.
Fair enough. Well, Justin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for contributing to the event. Thanks again. Thanks for
my place. Thank you.